Okay, sorry all. One last video short on a very important bone. I'm not sure how this got left out of my PowerPoint, but the scapula is probably by far one of the most difficult bones to orient yourself on. And so it's right up there with the os coxa. So I don't know what it is about these girdles, but again, your scapula makes up part of your pectoral girdle. Obviously, again, it's going to attach to your arm here. The easiest way to picture this is here is the spine of the scapula. That big giant spine is always going to be on the posterior end. So if you're not told, which you won't be on the practical, that it's the posterior view, you'll know that it's the posterior view. If you see this big spine sticking up, like you could just grab that. And I always used to tell students, you grab this and put it on someone's back, okay? So picture putting that on someone's back in front of you. Obviously, again, here, this has to articulate with the left arm then. So I'm just going to draw in here. This is obviously going to then articulate, again, remember this is the glenoid cavity, so it is going to articulate with the head of the humerus, okay? So here you can picture, here's my horrible drawing, right? An arm coming off here, okay? And so that's the easiest way to orient yourself, okay? So right away now, if you know that here, this is, right, that the scapula kind of sits over your ribs and you can feel this in your back, you can feel then that this is obviously got to be the lateral border, right? Because that's going to be more towards, again, the outside, right? It's going to be farther away from the midline, closer to your arm, the attachment point for your arm, okay? And so that means that this is the medial border here, okay? So again, those are just some really quick ways to orient yourself on the scapula, because I feel like this is such a tough bone to really orient yourself on. And then all the other things should come pretty easy. If you know that's the spine, this is of course the supraspinous fossa. This area all down here, of course, is the infraspinous fossa. And that's pretty, oh, and then of course your processes. Acromion process, again, coming out on top. Coracoid process coming out there. Okay, so let's see if it'll just let me advance. It might not. Let me see if I can click off of that, and we'll go ahead and advance. Oops, possibly. Okay, let me exit the drawing there. All right. So let's go to, so again, you can see this is just from the website here. So I'll try to add these into the PowerPoint just so that you have them, so that you can practice orienting yourself on these ones as well. So here again is another scapula. Of course, you're getting the anterior view this time, so it's a little bit trickier in terms of orienting yourself, because you almost have to kind of turn the bone around to see where you're at. But again, you can also just kind of memorize, oops, I'm sorry about that. You can also kind of just memorize that if it's got the glenoid cavity here, that's attaching to your arm, and that's going to be more lateral, okay? So just look for that glenoid cavity and think that's going to be lateral, okay? That's lateral. So this will be the lateral border, and this will be the medial border over here, okay? So those are the ways to orient yourself. This is a little bit easier to see the acromion process coming out on top, and then the coracoid process coming out kind of just below that. So those are the easy ways to orient yourself. And then of course, this is the subscapular, because it's the underside technically, right? Because it's going to be up against your ribs. So again, this is up against your rib cage, and you can palpate this on your own scapula. Again, I encourage you to palpate this on your own scapula because you can feel the spine of your scapula. So please go through and try doing that on yourself. So again, those you can see really the easiest way to kind of, if you can kind of memorize that glenoid cavity is going to be that lateral border. Or just intuitively, you kind of, if you're looking at the scapula enough, you'll really be able to picture that this is going to be that lateral border, because again, this is where you're attaching to the arm. Okay, if you kind of know the position of the scapula. So I think that was all I had in terms of orienting yourself to the scapula. But yes, just again, orienting yourself to the medial and lateral is probably the most important part. This is a little easier, just a superior view, because you're just really looking at the suprascapular fossa, and then of course the acromion process and the coracoid process there. So if you have any questions again on the scapula, please let me know, but hopefully that helped you really quickly orient to the scapula.